Hey everyone, welcome to our deep dive on living longer.
Yeah,
It's such a fascinating topic, Like how long can humans actually live?
right.
We've got all sorts of interesting stuff to explore today, from like historical trends to global facts and figures, and even some really cutting-edge research.
Oh, definitely.
Some of it might even sound like it's straight out of science fiction.
I know, right?
But our goal today is to go beyond just like the how long question.
Yeah.
We really want to understand what influences that number.
Hmm.
What are the factors, both in the world around us and the choices we make every single day, that impact how long we live?
Absolutely. And, those choices are a great place to start when you hear life expectancy, most people probably think, okay, how long am I going to live?
Yeah, for sure.
But it's amazing how much that number has changed over time.
Oh, tell me about it. I mean, for thousands of years, life expectancy was stuck around 30 years old. It makes you think about all the things that had to change for us to see that number go up.
Yeah. I mean, imagine that 30 years. And it wasn't until, relatively recently, the last century or so, that we saw this huge jump in life expectancy.
It's crazy, right? What had to happen for that to change?
Well, think about it. For a long time, basic medical practices that we take for granted today, like even washing your hands before surgery,
Right.
it just wasn't common knowledge.
Yeah.
The understanding of germs and how diseases spread was pretty limited.
Makes sense.
And it really wasn't until, well, scientific progress took off that we started to see these major improvements. Everything from like advancements in food production so we could feed more people,
Yeah.
to breakthroughs in medicine that could fight off infections.
So science basically supercharged our ability to live longer.
In a nutshell.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But here's a question for you.
Yeah.
If science is so advanced now, why is there such a huge difference in life expectancy around the world? Like you mentioned Japan earlier, where people can expect to live well into their 80s. But then you have places like Sierra Leone, where it's barely over 50.
Yeah, it's a huge gap.
What explains that?
That's a really great question. It highlights how much more goes into the equation than just scientific advancements alone.
Okay.
Socioeconomic conditions play a massive role.
Socioeconomic conditions.
Yeah, basically things like wealth, access to resources, overall quality of life, it all factors in. Think about things like access to healthcare, clean water, nutritious food.
Right.
Those things are not a given everywhere.
Yeah, for sure.
And, a powerful example of this is Haiti.
Oh.
They were devastated by that earthquake back in 2010.
That's horrible.
And the impact on their healthcare system, which is already struggling, was catastrophic.
Right.
It created a situation where, even just basic medical care was hard to come by.
Makes sense.
And sadly, life expectancy suffered as a direct result.
That's heartbreaking. It really makes you think about those things we often take for granted, like access to quality health care. They have a direct impact on how long people live.
For sure.
It almost makes you wonder, though, is being wealthy like a guarantee for a longer life?
Well, it definitely plays a role. Countries with more wealth generally have more resources, right?
Yeah.
And they can invest more in healthcare, education, social programs, all the things that can improve people's overall well-being.
Right.
But it's not as simple as saying more money equals longer life.
Okay.
A country like Switzerland, for instance, has a remarkably high life expectancy,
Yeah.
even higher than some wealthier nations. So while wealth is a factor, it's not the only piece of the puzzle.
Okay, so what else is going on then? Is it all about government policies?
Well, government policies definitely have a big impact.
Right.
Think about things like investments in healthcare infrastructure, public health initiatives to prevent diseases, access to education. All of these things contribute.
Right.
But it goes even broader than that. Conflicts and wars can obviously devastate populations and lower life expectancy.
Yeah, of course.
Also, education levels play a role. People with more education tend to make healthier choices. They have healthier habits and they're more informed about their health. So as you can see, achieving longer lifespans for everyone, everywhere, it's a really complex challenge.
It's not just one thing.
Definitely not. It involves a whole bunch of factors.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about this big global picture, which is super complex.
Yeah.
But let's bring it down to a more personal level. What about us as individuals? Do our own choices really have that much of an impact on how long we live?
Absolutely, they do. Think of it this way. You have a set of cards dealt to you by your circumstances where you're born, your socioeconomic status, your access to healthcare, all that stuff.
Okay.
But how you play those cards, that's up to you.
Interesting analogy.
The choices you make every single day about your diet, exercise, whether you smoke, how much you drink, these are all decisions that directly affect your health
Makes sense.
and ultimately your lifespan.
So, like, we're all dealt a hand, but we get to decide how we play it.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that. So, can you give us some specific examples of just how powerful those individual choices can be?
Sure. Let's look at alcohol-related deaths, for instance.
Huh?
In Belarus, a shocking number of people die each year due to alcohol-related conditions.
Wow.
But in Singapore, that number is significantly lower.
Huh.
It really highlights how our personal choices around alcohol consumption can have drastically different consequences for our health.
That's pretty eye-opening.
It is.
And what about other choices like drug use? How does that impact life expectancy?
Well, the impact of drug use on life expectancy is another stark example.
Yeah.
The United States, sadly, has a tragically high drug-related death rate,
Right.
while in South Korea, that rate is much, much lower.
Okay.
Again, it points to how personal choices, often influenced by social and cultural factors, can significantly affect longevity.
That's heavy stuff, but it's a good reminder that our choices matter. I imagine there are situations, though, where people might not have as many choices.
Absolutely. Sometimes circumstances beyond our control can limit our options.
Right.
A good example is maternal mortality.
Maternal mortality.
Yeah, that refers to the number of mothers who die during pregnancy or childbirth.
Oh, wow.
In Somalia, for instance, where poverty is widespread and access to quality healthcare is limited, the maternal mortality rate is devastatingly high.
Right.
But in Slovenia, a country with a strong healthcare system, that rate is dramatically lower.
That's so sad. It's a stark reminder that while we do have the power to make choices, not everyone has the same opportunities.
Exactly. It's like some people are starting the game at a serious disadvantage.
Yeah, like they were dealt a much tougher hand.
Right, and it's why we need to consider both individual agency, the power to make choices, and the larger societal context when we talk about life expectancy.
Okay.
It's a complex interplay of factors that contribute to how long and how well we live.
It really is.
Yeah.
So we've talked about how history and global factors, even our own choices, play a role in how long we live. But what about the future? Are we kind of just stuck with what we've got, or can we actually push the boundaries of, the human lifespan? I mean, living to 150 or even 200, is that just a crazy dream? Or is science actually getting us closer to that?
Well, that's where things get really exciting. What used to be like pure science fiction is starting to become a real possibility. Scientists all over the world are making these incredible breakthroughs that could totally change how we think about aging and living longer.
Okay, tell me more. What's happening in the labs? What's the cutting edge?
Well, one of the big things is gene editing. You can kind of think of it like editing a document on your computer. If you have a typo that's messing things up, you go in and fix the source code, right?
Right.
Gene editing is similar. Scientists are developing these tools to actually go in and edit our genes, potentially fixing those errors that contribute to aging and disease.
So it's like correcting the typos in our DNA.
Exactly. It's still early days, but the possibilities are pretty mind-blowing.
Gene editing, it sounds so futuristic. But it's happening now.
Yeah, it's happening. Another really exciting area is regenerative medicine.
Okay.
This focuses on repairing or replacing damaged tissues and organs, basically reversing the wear and tear that happens as we age.
So, like, fixing the parts that break down over time.
Yeah. Imagine being able to grow new heart tissue or replace a failing kidney with a brand new one made from your own cells.
That sounds incredible, like something out of a movie.
Yeah.
But wouldn't that be insanely expensive? Would only rich people be able to afford that?
That's a valid concern for sure. Right now, these therapies are still pretty new, and the cost is definitely a factor. But as with any new technology, as research progresses and those treatments become more common, the costs usually go down.
That's good to hear. It wouldn't be fair if only the wealthy could afford to live longer.
I agree. The goal is to make these life-extending therapies available to everyone.
Makes sense. So we've got gene editing, regenerative medicine. Are there any other big game changers in the works?
Oh, absolutely. Artificial intelligence is revolutionizing healthcare, too. AI algorithms can analyze tons of data, medical records, genetic information, lifestyle habits, and use that to detect patterns and predict health risks with incredible accuracy.
So AI could be like our personal health detective.
That's a great way to put it. It means we can diagnose diseases earlier, create more personalized treatment plans, and maybe even prevent those diseases from developing in the first place.
Wow, AI is our personal health guardian angel. So it's not just about fixing what's broken, but anticipating problems before they even arise.
Exactly. And AI can also help us understand the aging process itself in a much deeper way. By looking at huge data sets, AI can pinpoint the biological mechanisms that drive aging and identify potential targets to slow it down or even reverse it.
Okay, so we've got these high-tech solutions on the horizon. But what about things we can do now to increase our chances of living longer and healthier lives?
Absolutely. Remember we talked about those blue zones earlier? Those regions where people live exceptionally long and healthy lives? Well, a lot of their secrets are actually pretty simple lifestyle choices.
You mean those Mother Nature spas you mentioned? So what's their secret sauce?
One of the key ingredients is their diet. They eat a mostly plant-based diet, lots of fruits, vegetables, legumes, and whole grains.
So lots of broccoli then.
You got it. These foods are packed with nutrients, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants. They help protect against those chronic diseases and just promote overall health. It's not about, depriving yourself. It's about giving your body the good stuff.
Makes sense. What else is on the Blue Zone's menu for a longer life?
They also make regular physical activity a priority, but it's not about intense workouts at the gym. They just integrate movement into their daily life, walking, gardening, dancing, just staying active throughout the day.
So no need for those fancy gym memberships. Just keep moving. What else contributes to their impressive longevity?
Strong social connections are a big one.
Ah, the power of community.
Exactly. They have close-knit communities, people support each other, share meals, celebrate life together. These relationships offer emotional support, reduce stress, and create that sense of belonging, all of which are linked to living longer.
So it's not just about what you eat and how you move, but who you spend your time with.
Yeah, it's a holistic approach for sure. And there's one more important ingredient in their secret sauce,
What's that?
a sense of purpose.
Having a reason to get out of bed in the morning. Something that makes you feel like your life has meaning.
Exactly. Whether it's family, community involvement, a passion project, a spiritual belief, whatever it is, having a sense of purpose keeps people going, keeps them engaged with life and wanting to contribute to the world around them. And that turns out to be a really powerful factor for longevity.
So the Blue Zones offer a pretty good blueprint for a longer, healthier, and more fulfilling life.
I think so. And while we can't all live in a blue zone, we can certainly learn from them and incorporate some of their principles into our own lives, no matter where we are in the world.
It's inspiring to think that we have some control over our own longevity. Like it's not all predetermined.
Absolutely. By making smart choices about our diet, exercise, social connections, finding our purpose, we can all increase our chances of longer and healthier life.
Okay, so we've got these high-tech solutions coming up and ancient wisdom to guide us. Now, I'm curious, what's the longest anyone has ever actually lived?
That record goes to a French woman named Jeanne Calment, who lived to the incredible age of 122 years and 164 days.
122 years. That's amazing. She must have seen some incredible changes during her life.
Think about it. She was born in 1875 and died in 1997. So she saw the invention of the telephone, the automobile, the airplane, 2 world wars, the rise and fall of the Soviet Union, the internet. The list goes on and on.
It's mind-boggling to think about all the historical events she witnessed. I wonder what she would say about the world today.
It's a fascinating question, isn't it? To have lived through so much, to have seen the world change so dramatically, it makes you realize that human history is more than just dates and facts in a textbook. It's the stories of the people who actually lived through those events.
It makes you want to learn more about her life and her perspective. But what about those who are taking a more, unconventional approach to extending their life? I'm thinking about the biohackers. Those people using technology and sometimes extreme measures to, hack their way to immortality.
Yes. The biohackers, they're a really interesting and sometimes controversial part of this whole movement.
Like Brian Johnson, the tech millionaire. Yeah. He's on a mission to, reverse aging.
Yeah.
He wants to live forever, basically.
Brian Johnson's a great example. He's really meticulous about tracking and manipulating every aspect of his biology, his diet, exercise, sleep, hormone levels, everything. He reportedly swallows something like 50 pills every day.
50 pills a day. That's intense. What's he trying to achieve with all that?
His ultimate goal is to actually reverse aging on a cellular level. He's using all this cutting-edge technology and data to optimize his health and slow down, maybe even reverse the aging process.
It sounds like he's treating his body like a high-performance machine, constantly fine-tuning it.
That's a great analogy. And while his approach might seem a little extreme to some, it really highlights how fascinated we are with using technology to push the boundaries of human lifespan.
But isn't there a risk that all this biohacking could actually create even more inequality? Like, what about people who can't afford those expensive treatments and gadgets?
That's a really important ethical question. As these biohacking technologies get better, we need to make sure they don't just make existing health disparities worse. Access to these life-extending technologies should be fair, not just something for the wealthy.
That's a good point. We don't want to create a world where only the elite can afford to live longer.
Exactly. The goal should be to make these advancements available to everyone so we can all potentially benefit from longer, healthier lives.
So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dives into living longer, from like the history of life expectancy to all the global factors and, our own choices that shape how long we live. We even touched on cutting-edge science and the wisdom of people who have kind of figured out the secrets to longevity.
It's been quite a journey. We've seen how longevity is this complex mix of, like, our genes, our environment, our lifestyle, and even the societies we live in.
Yeah, and we've also seen that the quest for a longer life raises these really big questions.
Mm.
Ethical ones, philosophical ones, even like existential
It
ones.
really does. It makes you think about the meaning of life, and how we value youth, and what would happen if everyone lived much, much longer.
Exactly. It makes you wonder, like, if you could choose, how long would you actually want to live?
That's the big question, isn't it? And there's no right or wrong answer. It's a deeply personal choice. It depends on your values, your hopes, your vision of what makes a good life.
Like, what would you be willing to give up to live longer? Would you go to the extremes of a biohacker like Brian Johnson, constantly tracking and tweaking everything?
Or would you be more drawn to that balanced lifestyle of the Blue Zone's people, those simple pleasures, strong connections, and a sense of purpose?
Yeah. It's so interesting to think about all the different paths to longevity and what really matters most to us.
And remember, this deep dive is just the beginning. The whole field of longevity research is always changing. New discoveries and breakthroughs are happening all the time.
So keep exploring, keep asking questions, and don't be afraid to challenge what you think is possible.
You never know. Someday living to 122 might be the new normal.
Maybe we'll all have the chance to live longer, healthier, and more meaningful lives.
It's an exciting time to be alive.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of longevity. It's a topic that will probably keep us all thinking for a long time to come.
Absolutely. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the incredible potential of, well, being human.